At 8 a.m. on the 28th of February 1991, silence descended over the battlefields of Kuwait and southern Iraq. After a stunningly successful 100-hour ground war, the coalition halted operations. What had begun as the liberation of Kuwait from Iraqi occupation ended in decisive victory. Against the backdrop of arid desert and burning oil wells, superior coalition technology and training had overwhelmed what was then the world's fourth-largest army. The images of stealth fighters and precision-guided missiles became symbols of modern warfare's awesome power. The crisis began on August 2, 1990, when Kuwait awoke to the roar of Iraqi tanks advancing through its capital. Led by dictator Saddam Hussein and the Ba'ath Party, Iraq committed unprovoked aggression, occupying the tiny emirate in hours. Saddam declared Kuwait had returned to the fold of her motherland. Behind the rhetoric of Arab unity and anti-imperialism lay harsher realities. Iraq was $90 billion in debt after the Iran-Iraq War. Kuwait's alleged overproduction of oil had lowered global prices, costing Iraq billions in revenue. By seizing Kuwait, Saddam aimed to control more oil production, raise prices, and ease his crushing debt. The United Nations swiftly condemned the invasion with Resolution 660 and imposed sanctions. Britain and the United States led the formation of an international coalition. Fearing Saddam would next invade Saudi Arabia and control a huge share of global oil, President Bush launched Operation Desert Shield on August 8, 1990, rushing the 82nd Airborne and other forces to defend the kingdom. Britain, France, and Arab allies soon joined. Saddam tried to turn the conflict into a pan-Arab holy war, linking it to Palestine and threatening chemical weapons in Israel. Throughout late 1990, the coalition assembled under U.S. Central Command led by General Norman Schwarzkopf. Diplomacy and sanctions were tried, but Saddam refused to withdraw. On November 29, UN Resolution 678 authorized all necessary means. The deadline of January 15, 1991 passed. At 2:10 a.m. on January 17th, Operation Desert Storm began. Coalition warships fired Tomahawk cruise missiles, while hundreds of aircraft struck targets across Iraq. In Baghdad, power grids failed as precision strikes lit up the night sky. American F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighters delivered devastating blows to key defenses, operating almost undetected. Saddam retaliated by firing modified Al-Hussein Scud missiles at Israel and Saudi Arabia, hoping to draw Israel into the war and fracture the coalition. Coalition special forces and aircraft hunted mobile launchers in the Great Scud Hunt, while Patriot batteries defended key sites. The air campaign unfolded in 4 phases. First, gaining total air supremacy by destroying Iraqi command centers and air defenses. Second, striking strategic targets, bridges, refineries, ammunition dumps. Third, preparing the battlefield by attriting Iraqi ground forces. And fourth, close air support once the ground war began. Colonel John Warden's strategic vision shaped much of the early plan, emphasizing strikes against enemy leadership and control systems. In late January, Iraqi forces launched a surprise attack on the Saudi border town of Khafji. Coalition air power and ground forces quickly responded, destroying advancing Iraqi columns. This proved the lethal effectiveness of combined arms and highlighted Saddam's growing realization that a major ground offensive was inevitable. By mid-February, the coalition had devastated Iraqi infrastructure and forces from the air, though not to the extent some had hoped. General Schwarzkopf's ground plan featured a brilliant left hook. U.S. Marines and Arab forces would fix Iraqi attention in the east near Kuwait City, supported by a feigned amphibious landing. Meanwhile, the main effort, 7 Corps and supporting units, would swing wide to the west, outflanking Iraqi defenses, destroying the elite Republican Guard, and cutting off retreat routes. The 101st Airborne would conduct deep air assaults to block reinforcements. Advanced technology like GPS and thermal optics gave coalition forces a decisive night fighting edge. At 4 a.m. on February 24th, the ground war commenced. Marines and Arab allies overran eastern defenses far more easily than expected. That same day, 7 Corps launched its western assault. French forces secured the left flank while American and British armor executed a rapid, deep thrust. Iraqi resistance was often weak. Many units were under strength, demoralized, or already degraded by airstrikes. Coalition forces used superior training, technology, and maneuver to overwhelm successive positions. On February 26th, the Battle of 73 Easting saw American forces destroy elements of the Republican Guard Tawakalna Division in one of the largest tank battles since World War II. Iraqi forces began a chaotic withdrawal north. As Iraqi troops fled north along the Basra Road, coalition air power inflicted terrible destruction, creating scenes of carnage that shocked the world. Fearing political backlash, the coalition declared a ceasefire at 8 a.m. on February 28th, exactly 100 hours after the ground campaign began. In just 4 days, coalition forces achieved their objectives with remarkably low casualties, only about 70 battle deaths, while capturing tens of thousands of Iraqi prisoners. Iraq's army had been routed. Kuwait was liberated. However, the coalition chose not to advance on Baghdad, respecting the UN mandate focused on Kuwait's liberation. Saddam remained in power. Shiite and Kurdish rebellions were brutally suppressed. UN inspectors later dismantled much of Iraq's weapons of mass destruction programs, though Saddam obstructed them for years. Strategically, the Gulf War was a major success. Iraqi aggression was reversed, and Saddam could not dominate Gulf oil. It showcased the power of modern joint warfare, precision technology, and coalition unity. The 1991 Gulf War marked a new era of warfare defined by speed, precision, and overwhelming technological superiority. While it did not remove Saddam Hussein, it liberated Kuwait and demonstrated that the international community could act decisively against aggression. The images and lessons of those 100 hours continue to shape military strategy and international relations to this day.